Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. We're diving into some seriously important web security stuff today. SameSite lacks cookies. Yeah, specifically how effective they really are at preventing cross-site request forgery. But before we get too deep into the weeds, let's start with the basics. Just a quick refresher for anyone who might not be totally familiar with them. What exactly are CSRF attacks? Why are we still so worried about them in this day and age? Right. Well, think of it like this: you're logged into a website, maybe your bank or something, right? A CSRF attack basically tricks you into performing an action you never intended to do. Like, say there's a malicious website out there. Okay. It can have a hidden form lurking on the page. Right. And if you visit that page, you click a link, or even just load it, that form could submit a request to your bank without you even realizing it. Oh, wow. And because your browser automatically sends your login cookies along with the request, the bank thinks it's a legitimate action coming from you. Oh, that's scary. Yeah, it really exploits that inherent trust between you, the user, and the website. Right. That makes sense. Okay, so that's where these SameSite cookies come in, right? Trying to prevent that whole scenario from even happening. So break down for us how that lacks setting. How is it designed to protect against these attacks? So the SameSite attribute, it basically tells your browser, hey, when should I send cookies along with requests that are coming from other websites? Okay. With SameSite lacks, it means those cookies won't be included for most requests that come from a different site than the one you're currently on. Gotcha. So, if that bad guy tries to submit a form from their shady website to your bank, that bank's cookie won't be attached to the request. So it just blocks it, essentially. Right. But, and this is really important, there are a couple of exceptions. Okay. SameSite lacks does allow those cookies to be sent when you navigate to a site directly from another one, like when you click the link. And it also allows them for those initial GET requests, GET requests, triggered by a third-party site. Gotcha. Okay, so that makes sense. Sounds like it covers a lot of ground, especially with those form submissions, the POST request. But the research we've been looking at, it suggests SameSite lacks isn't the foolproof solution it might seem. Unfortunately, where are the testers finding it to be, less effective? The biggest issue is assuming it's like this ultimate CSRF defense, a catch-all. Our findings highlighted a couple of pretty significant ways attackers can bypass it. Really? One of them has to do with what we call dangerous GET requests. Okay, dangerous GET request. How can a GET, the GET request, be dangerous? I always thought those were the safer type. That's a common misconception for sure. Okay, it really depends on what those GET requests are actually doing, Right, it makes sense. In one of the tests, the application let users upload templates for reports. Okay. But there was this critical flaw. No restrictions on the type of files you could upload. Oh, that sounds like a bad idea. And then you could download those files directly using a simple GET request. I see where this is going. So someone could upload something malicious, like malware. What happens then? Yeah, exactly. In this case, the attacker created this basic web page just as a proof of concept. Okay. But when a victim visited that page, it automatically triggered a GET request to download that malicious file from the legitimate application. Wiki. And because SameSite lacks allows cookies to be sent with this top-level navigation and GET requests from third-party sites, the victim session cookie got included in that download request, right? So the server sees a valid session, and it just goes ahead and delivers the malware. That's really unsettling. So you're saying just loading a website could lead to malware being downloaded all because of a GET request and a SameSite lacks setting that doesn't recognize the danger. So how could this have been prevented? Well, the biggest takeaway there is to avoid using GET requests, GET requests, for anything that could have security implications. Things like downloading files, especially if those files hadn't been thoroughly checked. If they'd used POST requests for that, this attack likely wouldn't have worked. Why is that? SameSite lacks would have blocked it. Oh, gotcha. It's also important to note that there wasn't any validation on the uploaded files in this case, right? And there was no confirmation step before the download either. Those were definitely contributing factors. So basically, think twice before you use a GET request for anything sensitive. Got it. So we've seen how relying on SameSite lacks alone can backfire, especially with GET requests, right? What about that second scenario? You mentioned something like core misconfiguration. How did that tie into all of this? Yeah, so that second scenario, it involved a bunch of different vulnerabilities working together, kind of like a perfect storm. First of all, the application didn't have any anti-CSRF tokens, which that's just basic web security 101. Should always have those in place. Makes sense. And they had this sensitive GetTT endpoint at the URL apuser.info. And it returned, sensitive user data. And to top it all off, their course configuration, that's cross-origin resource sharing, was totally messed up. Oh boy. Specifically, they were echoing back the origin header in their response. Okay. In the access control allow origin header. And here's the real kicker. They also included access control allow credentials. True. That basically tells the browser, hey, even though this request is coming from a different website, go ahead and trust it with my cookies. Right, so course is like how browsers decide whether a website's allowed to make requests to another website. Exactly. Okay, so we've got sensitive data, misconfigured cores, and no CSRF tokens. I have a feeling this doesn't end well. How did the attacker exploit all of this? Right, well, picture this. The attacker creates a malicious web page with a little script that sends a JGA request to that app user info endpoint. Okay. And in the code for that request, they set this option called credentials include. That tells the browser to send any relevant cookies for the target website, which would be the victim session cookie in this case. So it's basically tricking the browser into sending the cookies. Yeah. And because of that messed up CORS configuration, the browser thinks everything's fine and dandy. Because it sees the access control allow credentials flag. Exactly. The attacker's website basically gets a free pass to make the request. So the attacker can see the victim's sensitive data just like that. Pretty much, the attacker can just grab that data from the response and send it off to their own server. Wow, that's a lot to unpack. So even though it was a cross-origin JET request, the combination of no CSRF tokens, sensitive data being returned, and a CORS policy, it all added up to bypass the SameSite lax protection. Exactly. The browser did exactly what it was supposed to do, but the server gave it bad instructions, basically. Wow. These examples really show us why relying solely on SameSite lax can be a risky move. What are the most important things our listeners should take away from all of this? SameSite lax is a good tool, don't get me wrong. Okay. But it's not a substitute for other crucial security measures. Got it. You absolutely cannot use GT requests for actions that could have serious consequences. And always use those anti-CSRF tokens on the server side. So just be super careful with your CORS configuration.